Everyone had a good summer? Come on, everyone enjoy your holiday? We had a holiday in the UK. Come on, rainy England, loving it. And it was good. We had a few days here. We had a few days in a cottage and up north. And it was ace, right? We didn't really know this, but when we booked the cottage just down the road a couple of miles away was England's biggest waterfall. Wow. Let me tell you, it's no Niagara, but it was big. It was pretty impressive. And it was amazing. And we kind of walked up to it, a small group of us, and we thought, you know, if you're going to come to England's biggest waterfall, then you can't really leave without going in it, right? As that thought was going in my head, before I knew it, I'd kind of, taken off a few of my clothes. I had my emergency swimmers on, and I was in the water. It was so good. And it was pretty amazing up until another walker happened to come round and take some pictures. And I thought, oh dear, this get a bit frisky. And it was okay, but that's how myths start, isn't it? Imagine when he gets home, looking at the pictures and go, what the heck is that? Bigfoot. It wasn't really. It's like, yeah. So it was good, really. We had a good summer break, and it's so good to be back in the house of God, though, isn't it? There's no place like being at church, and I'm really excited tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Josh. I'm the high school's pastor here at church, which is just the most awesome job that you could ever do, to represent God and represent all of us as Audacious in the high schools of Manchester, which is just such an awesome thing to do as we take loads of incredible people in there and just hang out with them and hopefully bring a little bit of change. Well, I know we're bringing change, which is so cool. And tonight I really believe that God's put this on my heart. So I'm just simply sharing what he's spoken to me already. And I hope you're coming along with me on that. Is that all right? You're with me? Come on, if you're with me, say yep. See, I'm the kind of person that when I speak, I love people to kind of talk back. I often, when I'm working in schools, I always have kids talking back to me. Often, the language is slightly different than in church, but that's okay. You can say what you want, but just let this be a conversation. And so I was thinking as I was preparing this, the sort of things that when you were younger, that you dream about being, the famous question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Anyone in here wanted to be a fireman? No? Anyone wanted to be like something called like a spaceman? Spaceman. Matt Hill? Or guitarist, musician, second player, that was all right. Anyone wanted to be in the army? See, I really wanted to be in the army, right? I don't know why. I think I just like the color green. And I used to, when I was growing up, like young, I'd have all the camo stuff, I had the camo paint, I had the kind of bullet belt and everything. Until I heard a few stories. My dad reckons he was in the army. Not really sure if he was, but I think he was. And one day he told me this story where one of his friends, they were shooting practice and they almost shot like the, I don't know, lieutenant or someone like that. And as a punishment, he got them all lined up on like the edge of some kind of cliff or bridge or something, and the wind coming at them, and the lieutenant got a whole bucket of wee and chucked it into the wind, and the wind brought it back on them. And I thought, probably the army is not for me. That's like the ice bucket challenge on a whole new level. Imagine getting nominated for that. Yeah, we are warmer though. I don't know. But there's lots of things that we kind of wanted to be growing up, whether it be a footballer, whether it be a musician, whether it be a nurse, whether it be like whatever, those kind of things. Anyone wanted to be a princess? Yes. Matt, you want to be a princess? No? But I reckon growing up in me, I don't know if this was just because I grew up in church or, whether I just learned it somewhere, but no matter what I wanted to be, and it kind of changed as I grew up, there's always something in me that had this kind of thought, is that with my life, I want to make a difference. With what I spend my life on, when I look back at it, I actually want to think, that was kind of, I spent it well. It was worth something. I made an impact. I did something with my life. No matter what age I kind of got to, I kind of thought that was what my life would be like. That I would bring a change, that I would do something, that my life would be effective. See, I'm sure pretty much most of us have got that within us. And if you don't tonight, I'd love to introduce you to God, the Creator, that kind of put purpose within inside of every single one of us. Even if you don't feel like your life can make a big difference, I believe through tonight, God is going to show you that and what he's kind of put you here on the earth for. But I kind of had those feelings growing up, and I'm sure most of you do and do right now, and I totally do as well. But the problem often when I think about it is, I want to bring a change, I want to make an impact, but often, you kind of have that thing, but, have that feeling, but when it hits Monday morning, you can feel very normal, can't you? When it hits kind of another day and it's another mundane, routine day, or whether there's something in your life that's kind of difficult and you're thinking, I've got this in the way, it's like an obstacle, I can't move past it, or it's just, my life is so normal. At my life at the moment, I'd love to make a change. I want to make an impact. I kind of get really inspired in church to do something, to change my workplace, to change my family. But actually, when it comes to it, I feel incredibly normal. And my life is having no real effect. And now what I really want to do over the next few moments really is just to basically unpack a little bit of my life. Is that okay? To kind of open up my life a little bit and kind of share some of the lessons that I've learned that God has spoken to me. And that's kind of been the last few weeks for me preparing for this. And I've kind of fought over this and cried over this and just tore it apart and kind of, God, what is this? And asked loads of questions and caused me to question so much. But I've learned so much of why I did what I did and why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. So are you okay to come on that journey with me? Because we all want to make a change, we all want to make a difference, but how do we do that? See, the big thing that I learned, and this is kind of the foundation, if you like, of everything that I'm saying, is this kind of question, or this kind of quote really, is that the change that I will make, the only change that I will make, is the one that is first done in me. The only change that I will bring to this world is the one that is first done in me. See, the change that we make is more about who you are than what you do. The change that you're going to bring to the world is more about who you are than what you do. See, we can strive to do the right thing and be a nice person and do good things, but actually, it's not about that. First of all, it's about who you are. See, what is the change in you? What is the change that you are bringing to your family, to your workplace, to your school? Because the only change that you will make is the change that is first done in you. See, I love reading the Gospels, and I love reading about Jesus. It's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. If you've never read the Bible, I encourage you to start there because it pulls together the story of Jesus. And I just love reading about Jesus because everywhere he went, he brought change. You would know where Jesus has been because there was just lots and lots of changed people. For you parents who've got, kids, and I knew I was like this growing up, you know where your child has been because of the chaos that they leave behind. They open the door, they take the blazer off, the shoes are over there, they head first to the kitchen, they kind of get a bit of cereal out, Cocoa Pops, there's a bowl here, there's a mug there, and then they run upstairs. You know where that person's been because of the trail that they leave behind. See, everywhere Jesus went, whether it was raising someone from the dead, whether it was opening a blind eye, whether it was bringing hope, bringing strength, bringing peace, bringing love. Everywhere that Jesus went, he brought change. And I love that about Jesus. Everywhere he went, every step that he took, he almost left a trail behind him of changed lives. See, I really love this story. 20 years ago, there was a guy called Sid. And Sid was just a normal guy, and he really loved rowing, and he was really passionate about Jesus. He would call himself a Christian, and he was kind of, wanting to make a difference, wanting to change the world around him. And he knew that this big event was coming on, and this guy, this visiting preacher was coming. He thought, I just need to get some of my friends there. And one of the guys that he used to row with was not a Christian. He was newly married. He had a daughter, married to his wife. And he thought, do you know what? I'm going to ask these people to come to this event because I believe that they need Jesus. So over the next couple of weeks, he would kind of just, easily ask the question or, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And would you come to this event? Eventually plucked up the courage to ask the question. And at the time, the guy, his mate was like, nah, I just don't really want to come. It's not my thing. And then he kept kind of pestering. And what do you want? It's coming closer. It's like a week away. Do you want to come? And his wife was like, I don't want to go to this Christian event. It'll be weird. There'll be people with sandals. They'll sing these weird songs. I'll get bored as people just stand at the front talking for ages. And anyway, as it kind of got a bit closer, Sid was like, oh, come on. Do you know what? I'm going to buy you a ticket. So we bought a ticket for his mate and his mate's wife. And anyway, they ended up coming and thought, oh, we're just going to come. So the couple accompanied Sid to this event. And the actual event was at Villa Park. Come on, there you go, Mike. Did that for you. And the event was at Villa Park in 1984, 20 years ago this year. And the visiting preacher was Billy Graham. And as the couple stood there, they couldn't really make out what all these songs were about. They didn't even really remember what the guy said. And as the guy went to the toilet, he just, to kind of clear his head a little bit, because just something was different about these people. What this guy was saying was something different. And as he went to the toilet, he just thought, oh man, I know this kind of appeal's going to come up and he's going to ask me if I want to go forward. And you know what? I just feel like I need to go forward. As he made his way back to the seat in Villa Park with thousands of people at this event, he noticed his wife was not at the seat, and his wife had already made a decision. And he thought, wow, I just need to get there. And as he made his way to the front, he could just see his wife in tears after making a decision for Jesus. And he went and stood with his wife, and both of them 20 years ago gave their lives to Jesus as the response person came over and prayed with them. And that was 20 years ago. And they had a daughter. They'd never grown up in church. And that family, the couple were Mick and Kate Cocker, my mom and dad. There's Emily, my sister, and Alice, and me, the little baby. See, they'd not grown up knowing Jesus. But Jesus is still alive today. And wherever he goes, he is bringing change to people's lives. See, he brought a change to Sid's life. See, his life is completely different. And the change that he brought to Sid's life, he brought to my mom and dad's life. And the Sid's trail now included my mom and dad, and now it included my two sisters and me. And the hundreds and the thousands of people that our lives are touching, and those lives that are touching. See, when your life is completely changed by Jesus, you create your own trail of lives that are changed. See, I love that Jesus is still alive today. He's still making a change. The title of my message, you've already seen it, is Trail of Change. Trail of Change. See, what God's desire is that you and I would come to know him. That we would firstly say yes, but then we would go on the journey and allow ourselves to become like him. And allow the change that he does inside of us to come out. The change that he's done on our hearts to overflow into other people's lives. See, as Jesus took another step and changed another person's life, like a ninja life changer, and he went around and changed village after village. See, the change that he wants to do in us, he wants us to take it to the lives around us. See, you have no idea the power that you hold. The change in you can change so many other people's lives as you create your own trail. See, Sid had no idea the impact that one invitation would bring to that family and generation after generation after generation. Without that invite, potentially we wouldn't be here today. But I'm so glad that someone decided to become like Jesus so much that he just impacted those around him. See, God wants us to bring us back to becoming like Jesus, because as we live just being ourselves, the trail and the impact and the legacy that we leave behind is only temporary. But as we become and live like Jesus, the trail and the impact we can have is eternal. See, just being me, being a nice guy, doing what I can, it will be a temporary change in people's lives. But as I know Jesus and bring people into relationship with him, I bring an eternal change into people's lives. And I just want to share these 3 verses with you, if that's okay. Everyone doing all right? And now this is really the foundation of everything, really. Of 2 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17 and 18. 2 Corinthians 3, and reading from the NLT, it says, "But whenever someone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away, for the Lord is the Spirit. And wherever the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom." Come on. Anyone been freed by Jesus? Is anyone a part of the trail that Jesus has left? The veil is taken away. In other words, every separation is taken away. You have full access to God when the veil is taken away. When you say yes to Jesus, you can have a relationship with him. And there's freedom being brought into your life. Come on, has anyone been freed by Jesus? Anyone felt his love? Anyone felt his strength? Anyone felt his hope? Anyone felt his purpose on your life? Verse goes on to say in verse 18, so all of us who have had that veil removed can see and reflect the glory of the Lord. So all of us who have had that veil removed can see and reflect the glory of the Lord. Somebody say see. Somebody say reflect. See, growing up, I've learned that it's a bit of a journey for me saying yes to Jesus, but I feel like I was a Christian. I said yes to Jesus. And though I may be saved, my life wasn't really changed. And Paul puts it like this in Colossians, where he says that, when you say yes to Jesus, keep going on and following him. And I felt like I'd said yes, but I wasn't really following him. See, I wasn't acting like him, I wasn't talking like him, or I didn't really look like Jesus. And therefore, my life had zero change. I'd be in school and I'd just be like everyone else. So I was kind of in church. And my life for a moment was kind of changed by the atmosphere. But when the atmosphere went, I was just like everyone else. See, why do people grow up and then go to uni and then absolutely crumble? Was because the only thing that was holding them up in the first place was the atmosphere. See, why would I kind of be in church and lift my hands and everything was great on a Sunday, but when I get to a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, my hands came down. I was like everyone else, and the change that was on me was just the atmosphere that I was in. It wasn't really coming from God. Verse says, you got to see and reflect. See, I absolutely love my nan. We saw her this week, actually. This week, my nan joined Instagram. That rhymes. My nan is cool, right? She's 82. She's got a boyfriend, and she's on Instagram. That is like, wow. But she's cool, right? And one day I was speaking to her, and she absolutely loves dancing, right? She absolutely loves dancing. She was like, Josh, we do this dance class where, see, she kind of has her own apartment, but it's like an old people's community, and so they put stuff on for all the old people there. And they were like, we do this dance class. And I was like, what kind of dance class is it? And she was like, oh, it's hip-hop. And I was like, oh, no, not really. Can you imagine all these old people coming together, like, turn up for what? And all these, like, hips popping out everywhere, and 80-year-old DJ. Could you imagine, like, they act all old, but they're not. They're just like, whoop, whoop. Stop it, I'm trying to preach. And anyway, she was like, oh, you go and try dance class. And I was like, oh, do you know what, I will. And so I kind of talked to my good friend, Harry Raisin, about it. And now we were like, do you know what, yeah, we should probably go to a dance class. Not together, like take our, my wife and his now fiance. And so a couple of months ago, we went along to a salsa class. Come on. I know, a little bit of Latin in me. There isn't. And we got to the class, and the only problem was when we got there, we found out it wasn't salsa, it was actually kizomba, which is completely different, okay? And so we all kind of came in, and it was all right at the beginning, and we had the kind of instructor, and there was loads of people, but as I was looking around, I was like, hold on a minute, there are like 8 times as many girls than there are guys, and then the instructor said these words of, because there's too many girls, you'll probably have to change partners, and at that point, I'm like, oh my word, what are we doing? Can we just go? Anyway, we paid, and we got into it, and let me describe, okay? She said, has anyone done salsa? And we were like, yeah, we've done salsa, it's cool. And she says, it's nothing like that, okay? It's the only way that I could describe it is like, it's like hugging someone really tight, okay? But instead of putting your head one side and then putting the head the other side, kind of just bring them so they're, directly opposite them, and then walk around in a circle with someone you don't know. Okay, that's pretty much kizomba. Oh man. So it was fine. I was kind of with my wife, Carlin. We were learning the moves a little bit. And then, the time came where you had to swap partner. And that became interesting. Let me tell you, some of my partners, I felt like David and Goliath, okay? They were like, this was getting difficult, okay? And anyway, at the beginning, I found it a little bit difficult, okay? Because the instructor was showing what you had to do, showing the different moves, and I couldn't really see, and there's people in the way, and I was like, I'm not really getting this, and your kind of dance partner came round, and the first person I was like, so, do you come here often? I don't know. What's your name? I felt it was weird. After that, it was just like, let's not talk, okay? As the partners came round, I was standing on feet, I was going the wrong way, I was bumping into people, and that was pretty much the first half of the dance class, and then the second half, I thought, you know what, I'm going to move so I can see. And after that, oh my word, I kid you not, me and Harry were unbelievable. We were so good, in fact, that the instructor asked us to stay behind for the advanced class. We'd made it. Unfortunately, Carly and Heather hadn't, so we had to go. We're not being back. I'm joking. We had to get out of there quick. See, the verse says we have to see and reflect God. See, the problem was in my life, I'd not seen him. I'd not seen him for myself. See, I was there in church because my mom and dad had brought me there, and that was great, but I hadn't seen him for myself. Just like the dance instructor, when I moved and positioned myself to see, I could then reflect what was happening. See, as Christians, as people, as believers, if we want to go on this transformation journey of change to becoming like Jesus, so we leave an incredible trail of changed lives, we have to position ourselves in his presence. We have to daily position ourselves in his presence. Not 20 years ago, not when I just got saved, not last week, not only on a Sunday, but daily position ourselves so we can see Jesus. See, the only job that a reflector does is to position itself in front of light. As soon as it's positioned in front of light, the light hits it and it can shine everywhere else, as Pastor Paul has already set it up so well. We're called to be reflectors, and all we have to do is position ourselves into his presence so that we can see him for ourselves. There's no wonder that we can't become like Jesus if we don't know him. Paul puts it like this in Colossians 3, chapter 3, verse 9 and 10. It says, "Don't lie to each other, for you have stripped off your old sinful nature and all the wicked deeds. Put on your new nature and be renewed as you learn to know your Creator and become like him." We've got to know him if we want to become like him. See, that's why Christianity is a relationship and not a religion. Because God's so desperate to know you. He's so desperate to know you. In the gospel, when Jesus was speaking to some religious people who all their lives were about what they could do and what they, the way they acted, rather than knowing God for themselves personally, rather than seeing him. And he quotes this verse from the Old Testament in Hosea 6, and in the Message version, Jesus says this. He says, "I'm after love that lasts." This is God speaking. "I'm after love that lasts, not more religion. I want you to know God, not go to more prayer meetings." See, what's the verse saying? God just wants you. Not what you do, he just wants you. God is so desperate to know you, for you to see him, for you to kind of really get to know him. He just wants you. See, religion will change your behavior for a moment, but a relationship will change who you are. And it all starts with me. Because the only change that we can bring is the one that's done in me, first of all. So we've got to be people who position ourselves in his presence. The verse goes on, 2 Corinthians 3, verse 18, it says, "And the Lord who is the Spirit makes us more and more like him as we are changed into his glorious image." See, I've learned this. What I surrender to will change me. What I surrender to will eventually change me. It will shape me. So what is shaping you? What are you allowing to change you and shape you? See, as a young teenager growing up, as I was kind of journeying this through, I found myself just surrendering to the world. The world completely shaped me. As I kind of let situation, as I let negative people, as I let the media, as I let my friends kind of come and shape me and change me. And that was the thing that was creating who I was. And so therefore, my actions out of that were incredibly selfish. See, the devil has brought a culture into our world that is so self-centered. We are the I generation. It's about me. It's what I can do. I'm not going to step out there if it costs me too much. Everyone, it's all about what I can do by myself. You only got to walk down Market Street and see everyone's busy. Everyone's got to get somewhere. There could be problems happening either side. And, it's only going to take a few people out of most people to do anything about it. See, what you surrender to will eventually change you. And I find myself just completely shaped by the world, completely inward focus. So I would never invite anyone to church. Why? Because I was so consumed about me and what everyone else thought about me that was shaping me. I was very reluctant to help other people or do anything that remotely reflected Jesus in any kind of way. Why? Because I was allowing the world to shape me. See, I love watching documentaries, and there's certain documentaries of where people are, desperate to change their, whether it be a diet or whether it be getting stuff out of the house or something. And generally, the way it goes is, you see a person, they see the kind of the difficulty that they've got themselves in as they've allowed things to shape them. And then they often bring in an expert to kind of encourage them of, this is, maybe we could do this or maybe we could change. And it always kind of takes the same route as the person is, for a while, reluctant to change. See, working with people, I've learned that they will only really listen to what you say. They'll only really apply what you're saying if they let you. See, the person in the documentary, the turning point is when they surrender to the expert, when they surrender to the person who is bringing the change for a positive way. And their lives can be changed. And for me, when I came to a place where I thought, God, I don't want to just look like the world anymore. I don't want that to shape who I am or who I think I am. I want you to completely shape me. God, I want you to change me. When I came to that place in my life where I'm like, God, I don't care what people think anymore. I don't care about anything else, but I just want you to change me. I want you to shape me. Then he started to do a work in me. He started to do a work on my heart. And I love in Matthew 26, verse 39, this is a picture, and it's such an incredible picture of Jesus. Such an incredible picture of surrender, of how he had allowed God to completely shape him. See, this is just moments, just hours before he was to be hung upon a cross. And in the Message version, kind of pulls together his prayer to his Father. And he says, going a little ahead, he fell on his face, praying, my Father, if there is any way, get me out of this. But please, not what I want. You, what do you want? And I'm so stunned at this, that Jesus would be in a place of such surrender, where he would say, God, whatever you want to do to my life, may you do it. See, when we surrender to the world and allow that to shape us, we can become very me-focused, very insular, very kind of almost selfish. But when you surrender to God and allow him to shape you to become like Jesus, the overflow of that is always, God, whatever your will is, I will go. When you allow God to shape you, you can't help but look at other people. You can't help but want to change people. You can't help but do something. See, I experienced that myself. As soon as I say, God, I want to be shaped by you, he did a work on my heart so that what moved him moved me. And I came into a position of saying, I've just got to do something. I've got to bring a change. Paul puts it like this in Galatians 2, verse 20. It says, my old self has been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Wow. What a sacrifice of Paul. Not I that live anymore, but Jesus in me. Paul surrendered his life so much that he said, it's not even me living anymore. It's just the shell of me with the complete fullness of Jesus inside of me now. Now it's not about my preference. It's not about my will. It's not what I want to do. But it's completely, God, your will be done in my life. And we see it through Paul's life, bringing change wherever he went. See, we've got to be people who daily position ourselves in his presence so we can see him and have a clear relationship with him. It's not religion. It's not just about what we do, but it's completely about who we are. And we reflect God as we know him more and more. We see we've got to position ourselves in his presence, and we've got to surrender daily. Not my will, God, but yours be done. Not my will, but yours be done. Not what I want, not my preference, but completely yours, God. And when you do that, and you allow God to completely shape you, you'll become more and more like Jesus. And the trail that you leave will be eternal. The trail that you leave, you won't be able to help yourself but change people's lives. As you live out of a place of surrender, becoming more and more like Jesus. See, when you surrender, God captures your heart. And that's really where I want to land this evening. God wants your heart. See, when God captures your heart, everything changes. Because he knows that if he can get your heart, he'll get every part of your actions. He'll get every part of you. See, growing up, being in church, I've heard so many messages about, we're going to win the world, we're going to win our street, let's all go and do something, woo, woo, woo. And we kind of go out there and we feel all empowered. But really, for me, all it was a change by the atmosphere. But this message is not about that. This message is focusing at your heart. Because I know if God gets your heart, he'll get your actions anyway. He'll get your Monday anyway. If God can capture your heart for the people in your world, he'll have everything else. See, it's like an internal transfer where as you surrender, it's like an exchange of your heart for his. So what moves him moves you. You can't help yourself but do something. You can't help yourself but walk into the office and say something encouraging when everyone else is negative and I don't want to be back at work, I don't want to be here, to say something encouraging. You won't help yourself but be generous. You won't be able to help yourself but invite someone to church. You can't help yourself but get to know your neighbor. To bring a little bit of love, to bring a little bit of hope, to bring a little bit of strength. When someone is in need, when someone needs a lift somewhere. See, these are all little things. And this message is not about let's just go and do all these little things. It's about, come on, let's really see God for ourselves. Because as you see him, you'll be able to reflect him. And as we surrender, God's Spirit will take us on the journey of shaping us, of molding us, of breaking us, and losing our will, stepping over ourselves and our issues and our problems and just facing out. The culture of heaven is the people around us. See, this is the greatest picture of what we've been talking about in Mark 5. Jesus rocks up to a place and there's a man there and the Bible says that he's been pretty, he was an outcast. He was lonely. He was by himself. This guy, the Bible says he was demon possessed, so he lived in a graveyard. He would cut himself. No one else would go near him. He would kind of bring havoc all over, everywhere he went. They used to chain him up, but he would just break them. See, no one would go near him. A complete mess, a complete wreck. Had a family, but had left them. And as Jesus comes to him, he runs to Jesus, falls on his knees, and they have this kind of conversation that goes off. And the demons within him are talking to Jesus, and eventually Jesus completely changes him as he casts out the demons. And all the villagers, all the people that had known this guy, known his actions, known what he was like, saw him and were just like, oh my word, is this the same person? And all that had happened was an encounter with Jesus. And seeing after that, we pick it up in verse 18. See, after that happened, Jesus was on his way out, and it says, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus said, no, go home to your family and tell them everything the Lord has done for you and how merciful he has been. So the man started off to visit the 10 towns of that region and began to proclaim the great things that Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed at what he told them. Such an incredible account of change. See, here was Jesus, the very Son of God, only doing what he saw the Father doing, came to this place and completely changed this guy's life. I don't know about you, but I can kind of relate to this guy living life without Jesus. But once you've encountered Jesus, once you've seen him for yourself, once you completely surrender on your knees and say, your will be done, a change happens. And Jesus doesn't just leave him there. He says, go back and tell everyone else what he's done in your life. See, this is an incredible account. And this guy goes on, and I can just imagine him going to the first town and the second town and the third town of just saying, you remember what I used to be like? Look at what God has done. Look at the scars that he has healed. Look at the person that I am right now because of the difference Jesus makes in my life.